The meeting room was massive. It floated in space, attached to nothing, held in place by technology most humans still did not understand. Inside, commanders from 40 different alien species sat around a curved table that seemed to go on forever. Each commander wore their species' military uniform. Some had scales. Others had fur. A few glowed with strange light. All of them looked important. Captain Huan Li sat near the end of the table. He was human, which meant he looked plain compared to the others. He wore a simple gray uniform with the letters UES on the chest. United Earthship. His face showed no emotion as he listened to Admiral Velkara speak. Admiral Velkara was tall, taller than any human could ever be. Her skin was blue and covered in patterns that moved like water. She was from a species called the Vraxians, and they had been traveling through space for thousands of years before humans even invented the wheel. She pointed at the hologram floating above the table. "The Thraxian Empire is moving toward our space," she said. Her voice was deep and carried authority. "They have 300 warships. Their weapons are powerful. Their shields are strong. They have already destroyed 2 of our colonies. We must stop them at the Kronos Expanse." The hologram showed the battle plan. Different colored ships represented different species fleets. Captain Huan Li saw his ship, the UES Perseverance, marked with a small dot far from the main fighting. "Each of you will present your ship's capabilities," the Admiral continued. "We need to know what every vessel can do." One by one, the alien commanders stood and spoke. Commander Thexnor, a reptilian creature with sharp teeth and yellow eyes, bragged about his ship's speed. "The Swift Talon can reach 0.7 light speed in normal space," he hissed proudly. "We will strike fast and hard." Other commanders spoke of their energy shields, their plasma weapons, their advanced sensors. Each ship seemed more impressive than the last. Finally, Admiral Velkara turned to Captain Huan Li. "Captain Li, tell us about the Perseverance." Huan Li stood. He was shorter than most beings in the room, but he stood straight. "The UES Perseverance is Earth's newest warship. She has strong armor, good weapons. Our maximum speed using standard engines is 0.3 light speed." Silence fell over the room. Then someone laughed. It was a chirping sound, coming from a bird-like alien near the middle of the table. Soon others joined in. Even Commander Thexnor was laughing, though his laugh sounded more like a growl. "0.3? Thexnor said, still laughing. "Our cargo ships move faster than that." "How do you expect to catch an enemy, human? How will you fight when they can simply fly away from you?" Captain Huan Li did not smile. He did not frown. His face remained calm as he sat back down. "We manage," he said quietly. Admiral Velkara raised one long hand and the laughter stopped. But the damage was done. The other commanders looked at Captain Huan Li with something between pity and contempt. The humans had been in space for only 50 years. They had joined the Galactic Coalition only because they needed protection from hostile species. Everyone knew humans were primitive. "The Perseverance will guard the supply convoy," Admiral Velkara decided. "You will stay 15 light minutes behind the main fleet. Protect our supplies. That is where you can be most useful." It was a gentle way of saying, "Stay out of the real fighting." Captain Huan Li nodded once. "Understood, Admiral." The meeting ended. The alien commanders left in groups, talking excitedly about the coming battle. None of them spoke to Captain Huan Li. He walked alone back to the shuttle that would take him to his ship. On board the shuttle, Commander Jiwon Park was waiting. She was the Perseverance's second-in-command, and she had watched the meeting through a video feed. Her face was tight with anger. "They laughed at us," she said as soon as the shuttle door closed. "They think we're useless." Captain Huan Li sat down and looked out the window at the stars. "Yes, they do. We should tell them," Jiwon Park said. "We should explain what the ship can really do." "No," the captain said firmly. "Let them think what they want. When the time comes, they will see." The shuttle flew through space toward the Perseverance. The ship was large, at least compared to human vessels. But next to the alien warships that floated nearby, it looked small and simple. Its hull was gray metal, marked with scratches and dents from previous battles. There were no bright lights, no glowing energy fields, just a solid, tough ship. Inside the Perseverance, Lieutenant Minho Kim was working in the engine room. He was young, only 32 years old, but he knew every part of the ship better than anyone else. Right now, he was checking the mass driver systems. The mass driver was not like the engines the aliens used. It did not bend space or open wormholes. It was simpler than that and also much more dangerous. The mass driver could accelerate the entire ship to incredible speeds in a very short time, but using it required careful planning and perfect timing. When Captain Huan Li and Commander Ji-Wan Park returned to the ship, they went straight to the bridge. The bridge crew stood when the captain entered. There were 12 people on the bridge, all human, all trained for years to work together. "Status report," Captain Huan Li said as he sat in his command chair. "All systems normal," reported the tactical officer. "Weapons ready. Shields at full power. Mass driver systems are charged and waiting." Captain Huan Li pulled up the tactical display on his screen. It showed the entire sector of space. The Coalition fleet was gathering, preparing to move to the Kronos expanse. The Thraxian fleet was still far away but getting closer. "We will follow the Admiral's orders," he said. "We stay with the supply convoy, but I want constant sensor scans of the battle zone. I want to know everything that happens the moment it happens." "Yes, sir," the crew replied together. Commander Ji-Wan Park stood next to the captain's chair. She spoke quietly so only he could hear. "They will call for help. When the battle goes badly, they will remember us then." Captain Huan Li nodded slowly. "Yes, and when they call, we will answer. Get Lieutenant Kim up here. I want to discuss acceleration profiles." 2 days passed. The Coalition fleet moved to the Kronos expanse and waited. The Perseverance stayed behind with 20 cargo ships full of supplies, ammunition, and spare parts. It was boring duty. The crew practiced drills to stay sharp. Then the sensors picked up movement. The Thraxian fleet had arrived. 300 ships, just as the Admiral had said. They moved in perfect formation like a school of deadly fish. Their hulls were dark red and their weapons glowed with green energy. "The fleet is engaging," the sensor officer reported. "I'm reading weapons fire. Many ships. The battle has started." Captain Huan Li watched the sensor data. The Coalition ships were fast and well armed, but the Thraxians had more ships. Much more. The battle was not going well. "Captain," Commander Ji-Wan Park said, "we should move closer." "Just in case." "Not yet," Captain Huan Li said. "We wait." Minutes felt like hours. The sensor readings got worse. Coalition ships were being destroyed. The enemy was winning. Then the communication system crackled to life. It was Admiral Velkara's voice, but now it sounded desperate. "All ships. We need support. Any ship that can fight, come to our position immediately." Captain Huan Li looked at Commander Ji-Wan Park. She nodded. He pressed the communication button. Perseverance to Admiral Velkara. "We are coming. Arrival time, 6 minutes." There was a confused pause. Then the Admiral's voice came back. "Did you say 6 minutes, Captain?" "You are 15 light minutes away. Even at maximum speed, you cannot," but Captain Huan Li had already cut the channel. He turned to his crew. "Battle stations. Charge the mass driver to maximum. All crew secure for extreme acceleration. Lieutenant Kim, I need everything the engines can give." The crew moved fast. Alarms sounded throughout the ship. In the engine room, Lieutenant Minho Kim smiled as he placed his hand on the activation controls. Finally, they would show the galaxy what humans could do. The Kronos expanse was filling with fire and death. Admiral Velkara gripped the arms of her command chair as another explosion rocked her ship. The Stellar Crown, her flagship, was one of the most powerful vessels in the Coalition fleet. Right now, it was barely surviving. "Shield strength at 40%, her tactical officer reported. The fear in his voice was clear. "We cannot take much more of this, Admiral." Around them, the battle was chaos. The Thraxian ships moved in perfect coordination, like wolves hunting prey. They would swarm a single Coalition vessel, overwhelming its shields with plasma fire, then move to the next target. Already, 15 Coalition ships had been destroyed, 15 crews lost to the void of space. Commander Thexnor's voice came through the communication system. His ship, the Swift Talon, was trying to help the Admiral. "I am coming to your position, Admiral. Hold on." But even as he spoke, 3 Thraxian cruisers cut off his path. Thexnor had to break away or be destroyed. The Coalition fleet was being torn apart. They were losing. Admiral Velkara made a desperate decision. She opened a channel to all ships, including the ones she had dismissed to guard duty. "All vessels, we need immediate support. Any ship that can fight, come to our position now." Responses came back slowly. Most ships were already engaged in combat. Some were too damaged to move. The Admiral felt hope slipping away. Then a voice she did not expect to hear came through the speakers. Perseverance to Admiral Velkara. We are coming. Arrival time, 6 minutes. The Admiral stared at her communication panel. 6 minutes. The human ship was 15 light minutes away. Even if it traveled at maximum speed, which was only 0.3 light speed, it would take 50 minutes to arrive. Had the human captain made a mistake? Did you say 6 minutes, Captain? You are 15 light minutes away. Even at maximum speed, you cannot. The channel went dead. The human had cut the connection. Admiral Velkara did not have time to think about it. Another wave of Thoraxian fighters was attacking. Aboard the Perseverance, the bridge was controlled chaos. Red warning lights flashed. Alarms beeped and chirped, but the crew moved with practiced efficiency. Everyone knew their job. Mass driver capacitors at 30%. Lieutenant Minho Kim's voice came through from the engine room. Still charging. I need 2 more minutes to reach full power. Captain Huan Lee watched numbers scroll across his display. The mass driver was the ship's secret weapon. It was not an engine in the traditional sense. It was a massive magnetic accelerator that ran through the entire length of the ship. When activated, it could push the Perseverance to incredible speeds, but only in short bursts, and only in a straight line. Navigation, confirm our vector, Commander Jiwon Park said. She was standing at the tactical station, her fingers dancing over holographic controls. We need to pass through the enemy formation at exactly the right angle. Vector confirmed, the navigation officer replied. We will approach the Thoraxian fleet from their right flank. If we maintain course, we will pass within 2 kilometers of their command carriers. Perfect, Captain Huan Lee said. That is close enough. Capacitors at 60%, Lieutenant Kim reported. 70%, 80%. The crew checked their restraints. When the mass driver fired, the acceleration would be extreme. Even with inertial dampeners working at full power, the force would be crushing. Anyone not properly secured could be seriously injured. Capacitors at 95%, Kim said. 98. 100%. We are at full charge, Captain. Mass driver ready to fire. Captain Huan Lee took one long breath. He had practiced this maneuver in simulations hundreds of times. But this was real. If anything went wrong, the ship would be destroyed. If the timing was off by even a second, they would miss the enemy formation entirely. All crew, he said calmly into the ship-wide intercom. Brace for acceleration, this will be rough. He looked at Commander Park. She nodded at him. Her face was calm, but her eyes were bright with excitement. Engage mass driver, Captain Huan Lee ordered. Acceleration to 0.95 light speed. Duration 180 seconds. Lieutenant Kim pressed the activation control in the engine room. The mass driver came to life. Space itself seemed to bend around the Perseverance. Energy poured into the acceleration coils that ran the length of the ship. Magnetic fields stronger than a star's core gripped the vessel. And then the ship moved. The acceleration was brutal. In the first 3 seconds, the Perseverance went from almost standing still to 10% of light speed. The crew felt like giants were sitting on their chests. Breathing became difficult. Vision blurred at the edges, but the ship kept accelerating. 10 seconds in, they were at 40% light speed. The stars outside began to look strange. Light from stars ahead shifted toward blue. Light from behind shifted toward red. It was called Doppler shift, and it meant they were moving incredibly fast. At 30 seconds, they hit 70% light speed. The inertial dampeners were working at 150% of their designed capacity. Warning alarms screamed about stress on the hull. Metal groaned as it bent under forces it was never meant to endure. Hull integrity at 85%, someone reported. The voice sounded strained, but holding. At 60 seconds, they reached 85% light speed. Now, strange things began to happen. Time itself started behaving oddly. Inside the ship, seconds felt normal, but outside, time was moving faster. It was a result of Einstein's theories. At extreme speeds, time slows down for the people moving fast. At 90 seconds, they hit 90% light speed. Captain Huan Li could see the Thraxian fleet on his sensors now, growing closer at an impossible rate. Ships that had been 15 light minutes away were now only 3 light minutes distant. Target lock acquired, Commander Park reported. Her voice was tight with strain. I have identified 23 priority targets, command carriers and heavy cruisers, ready to deploy payload on your order. At 120 seconds, they reached 95% light speed. This was as fast as the ship could safely go. Any faster and the forces involved would tear the Perseverance apart. The mass driver continued to fire, but now it was only maintaining their speed, not increasing it. The Thraxian fleet filled their sensors. Individual ships were visible now. Some were huge, larger than anything humans had ever built. Their hulls glowed with the green light of their weapons. They had no idea what was coming. The Thraxian sensors did detect something, a small object approaching at incredible speed, but their computers could not identify it. The signature was too small to be a ship, too fast to be a missile. By the time their artificial intelligence figured out what it was, the Perseverance was already there. 30 seconds to contact, Commander Park announced. 20 seconds, 15. Captain Huan Li watched the distance counter tick down. 10 seconds, 9, 8. The Thraxian ships grew larger on the screen, filling the view. Deploy payload, he ordered. At that moment, Commander Park triggered the weapons system. But the Perseverance did not fire lasers or missiles. Instead, it released a cloud of small metal pellets. Tungsten, one of the heaviest and hardest metals known to humans. Each pellet was no bigger than a grain of sand. At 95% of light speed, even a grain of sand becomes a weapon of massive destruction. Each tiny pellet carried kinetic energy equal to a nuclear bomb, and the Perseverance released thousands of them. The pellet cloud spread out in a precise pattern, calculated by Commander Park's targeting computer. It expanded like a net of death, moving at near light speed toward the Thraxian formation. "Brace for turn!" Captain Huan Li shouted. The Perseverance fired every thruster it had at once, trying to change course. At 95% light speed, even a small turn required enormous force. The ship groaned and shook. In the engine room, Lieutenant Kim watched as stress indicators climbed into the red zone. The ship turned, barely. Just enough to avoid colliding with the enemy fleet. Just enough to survive. Behind them, the cloud of tungsten pellets reached the Thraxian formation. And then the first impacts occurred. What happened next was not a battle. It was annihilation. The first Thraxian dreadnought vanished in a flash of white light so bright it could have been seen from planets many light years away. The second dreadnought was cut in half, its entire front section simply ceasing to exist. Across the formation, ships died. Their shields, designed to stop energy weapons, did nothing against solid matter moving at near light speed. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers in the darkness of space. Silence filled the Coalition fleet for exactly 5 seconds. Every commander, every crew member, every sensor technician stared at their displays and tried to understand what had just happened. 23 Thraxian capital ships were gone. Not damaged, not disabled. Gone. Where mighty dreadnoughts and heavy cruisers had floated moments before, there was now only expanding clouds of plasma and debris. The explosions were so hot that they glowed with radiation across multiple spectrums. 40 more Thraxian ships had been hit by the edges of the pellet cloud. Their hulls were torn open. Atmosphere vented into space. Internal explosions rippled through their structures as power systems failed. These ships were dying just more slowly. Admiral Velcara found her voice first. What was that?" Her tactical officer was checking and rechecking his sensor readings. "Admiral, the human ship. It just passed through the enemy formation at 0.95 light speed. I have never seen anything move that fast in normal space, never. 0.95? The Admiral could not believe it. But Captain Lee said his maximum speed was 0.3. He said, she stopped. Understanding slowly dawned on her face. The human had not lied. He simply had not told the whole truth. Commander Thexnor's voice came through the communication channel. He sounded different now. The mockery was gone from his voice. Now there was only awe. By all the ancestors of my people, what are humans? Aboard the Perseverance, the situation was less amazing and more desperate. The ship shook violently as it decelerated. The mass driver was running in reverse now, fighting to slow the vessel down before they flew past the battlefield entirely. Hull integrity at 73%, Lieutenant Minho Kim reported from the engine room. His voice was strained. We have stress fractures in sections 4 through 7. Inertial dampeners are at 140% capacity. Captain, we cannot do that again. If we try, the ship will break apart. Captain Huan Li gripped his command chair as the ship lurched. His fingers were white from the pressure. Understood, Lieutenant. Bring us around. Standard speed. Commander Jiwon Park was already analyzing the damage they had caused. The tactical display showed the destruction in detail. 23 confirmed kills, she reported. 40 ships with critical damage. The Thoraxian formation is broken. They are trying to regroup, but they are confused. How long until we can use the mass driver again? Captain Huan Li asked. 4 hours minimum to fully recharge, Commander Park replied. And Lieutenant Kim is right. The ship cannot survive another acceleration to 0.95 light speed. Maximum safe speed for a second strike would be 0.75, and even that is dangerous. Captain Huan Li nodded. Then we fight the old way. Conventional weapons. Bring us into standard combat range. Target their command ship. Let us finish what we started. The Perseverance turned and began moving toward the Thoraxian fleet at its normal speed. 0.3. Light speed seemed very slow now after what they had just done, but it was still faster than most of the damaged Thoraxian ships could manage. Admiral Velkara watched the human ship approach the battle. She opened a channel. Captain Lee, that was extraordinary. I have never seen anything like it. Can you repeat that strike? Negative, Admiral, Captain Huan Li replied. The mass driver needs time to recharge. But we are not finished. Perseverance engaging with conventional weapons. All coalition ships press your attack. The enemy is vulnerable. The Admiral did not need to be told twice. All ships advance. Target the damaged vessels first. Do not let them recover. The coalition fleet surged forward. Ships that had been retreating minutes ago now charged ahead with renewed courage. The Thoraxians, who had seemed invincible, were now in disarray. Their tight formations were broken. Their command structure was damaged, and they had just learned that the coalition had a weapon they could not defend against. War Master Krell commanded what was left of the Thoraxian fleet from his flagship. He was a veteran of 100 battles. He had conquered 12 star systems for his empire, but he had never faced anything like the human ship. What hit us? He demanded of his tactical officer. A single ship, War Master. The human vessel. It used its velocity as a weapon. Our shields could not stop solid projectiles moving at near light speed. The physics. The officer trailed off, overwhelmed by what he was trying to explain. Krell understood immediately. He had studied physics at the military academy. He knew that kinetic energy increased with the square of velocity. At 95% light speed, even tiny objects became devastating weapons. The humans had not invented some miracle technology. They had simply used normal physics in a way no one else had thought of. It was brilliant. And it was terrifying. Can they do it again? Krell asked. Unknown, War Master, but sensors show the human ship is approaching at standard velocity now. They are not accelerating. Perhaps they cannot repeat the maneuver. Krell made a quick decision. Then we must destroy them before they can recharge. All ships within range converge on the human vessel. Stay close. If they cannot accelerate to attack speed, they are just another enemy ship, and one ship we can destroy. 50 Thoraxian ships changed course. They abandoned their attacks on other coalition vessels and burned toward the Perseverance at maximum speed. It was a gamble, but Krell was a gambler. If they could kill the human ship, the rest of the coalition fleet would lose hope. The battle could still be won. Captain, sensors are showing multiple enemy ships approaching our position. The tactical officer aboard the Perseverance reported. 50 ships. They are closing from multiple directions. At 3 minutes, Commander Jiwon Park pulled up the tactical display. They are trying to trap us. If they surround us, we will not have room to accelerate for another strike. Even if we had the power, we could not do it. Captain Huan Li studied the approaching ships. They were moving in a coordinated pattern, cutting off escape routes. It was a good plan. It might even work. They think they have learned our secret, he said quietly. They think we are helpless without the mass driver. Are we not? Commander Park asked. Captain Huan Li allowed himself a small smile. No, the mass driver is our most powerful weapon, but it is not our only weapon. Redirect all power from the mass driver to shields and weapons. Charge the railguns. The bridge crew moved quickly. Lights dimmed as power flowed from one system to another. The Perseverance carried weapons that most alien ships did not use. Magnetic accelerator cannons, railguns. They fired solid projectiles using electromagnetic force. The aliens preferred energy weapons, lasers, plasma cannons, particle beams. These weapons were powerful and accurate, but they had one weakness: shields could block them. Solid projectiles were different. At high enough velocity, no shield could stop them. The Perseverance's railguns could not fire projectiles at 95% light speed, but they could manage 15%. At that speed, a tungsten slug carried enough kinetic energy to punch through any shield in the galaxy. Railguns charged and ready, Commander Park reported. We have firing solutions for all approaching ships. Priority targets identified. Fire at will, Captain Huan Li ordered. The Perseverance opened fire. Tungsten slugs, each one the size of a human fist, shot from the railgun barrels at 15% of light speed. They were too small and too fast for enemy sensors to track effectively. The first slug hit a Thraxian cruiser directly in its bridge section. The ship's shields tried to stop it. They might as well have been made of paper. The slug passed through the shield, through the hull armor, through the entire ship and out the other side. In its wake, it left a tunnel of destruction. Everything the slug touched was vaporized by the kinetic energy of impact. The cruiser broke apart. Not exploded, just broke, like a toy stepped on by a giant. The second slug hit another ship, then a third. The Perseverance fired methodically, each shot precisely calculated by Commander Park's targeting computer. The Thraxian ship started taking evasive action, but at the distances involved, it was hard to dodge something moving at 15% light speed. They are adapting, Commander Park observed, spreading out their formation, making themselves harder to hit. Then they are also making themselves easier for the Coalition fleet to handle, Captain Huan Li replied. Keep firing. Admiral Velcara saw what was happening. The Thraxian ships trying to surround the human vessel were breaking formation to avoid its weapons. This created gaps in their lines, gaps that Coalition ships could exploit. All ships attack through the gaps, she ordered. Do not let them concentrate on the Perseverance. Commander Thexnor brought the Swift Talon diving through one of those gaps. His ship's plasma cannons lit up space as he fired on a Thraxian destroyer. Human ship, I am forming up on your wing. Request permission to assist. Permission granted, Captain Huan Li replied. Stay close and watch for our railgun fire. It does not distinguish between friend and enemy. Understood, Thexnor said. Then he added something he never thought he would say to a human. It is an honor to fight beside you, Captain. More Coalition ships joined the fight around the Perseverance. What had been a trap for the human ship became a trap for the Thraxians. They were caught between the Perseverance's devastating railguns and the combined firepower of the Coalition fleet. But the battle was far from over. War Master Krell stared at his tactical display with growing desperation. He had started this battle with 300 ships. Now he had barely 240. More than 60 vessels destroyed or disabled in less than 30 minutes of fighting. His Empire's admirals would demand answers. If he survived, the human ship was the key. That single vessel had changed everything. As long as it remained in the battle, his fleet could not win. His officers had tried to surround it, but the Coalition fleet protected it too well. And those railguns, Krell had never seen anything that could punch through shields so easily. He made a decision that would have been unthinkable an hour ago. Prepare all ships for immediate withdrawal, he ordered. We are retreating. His tactical officer looked shocked. War Master, we still outnumber them. If we concentrate, our numbers mean nothing against that weapon, Krell interrupted. The human ship can accelerate to near light speed. If it recharges its weapon system, it will kill another 50 ships in seconds. We have already lost this battle. All we can do now is save what remains of our fleet. But before the order could be transmitted, another officer called out. War Master, sensors detect a power buildup in the human ship. They are charging their main weapon again. Energy signatures match the attack that destroyed our first wave. Krell felt his blood run cold. So soon, how could they recharge that quickly? Unless they had been hiding their true capabilities all along. All ships, emergency scatter formation. Do not stay grouped together. Move now. Aboard the Perseverance, Lieutenant Minho Kim was performing what could only be called a miracle.
He had rerouted power from every non-essential system.
Life support in 6 sections was offline. The crew in those areas had evacuated and sealed the doors. Environmental controls were running on minimum power. Even some of the lights on the bridge had dimmed. "This is insane," he muttered to himself as he watched the mass driver capacitors slowly fill. "We need 4 hours. I am giving them 90 minutes. The reactors are running at 110% capacity. If something fails..." But the reactors did not fail. They screamed and groaned and vibrated hard enough to rattle the deck plates, but they kept working. Power flowed into the capacitors, slowly, too slowly, but it was flowing. "Captain," Lieutenant Kim's voice came through the intercom. "I can give you 73% charge in 90 minutes. No more, and after that, we are done. The systems will need complete overhaul. We might not even make it home without a tow." 73% will have to be enough," Captain Huan Lee replied. "Keep charging. We will need every bit of power you can give us." The battle continued around them. The Perseverance kept firing its railguns, each shot carefully placed. Commander Jiwon Park worked her tactical display like a musician playing an instrument. Every calculation had to be perfect. Every shot had to count. "Shields at 68%, the defensive officer reported. "We are taking heavy fire from multiple directions. Recommend we pull back to a safer position." "Negative," Captain Huan Lee said. "We stay in the fight. Keep firing." Commander Thexnor was fighting nearby in the Swift Talon. His ship was faster and more maneuverable than the Perseverance, and he used that advantage to protect the human vessel. When a group of Thraxian fighters tried to attack the Perseverance from behind, Thexnor intercepted them. His plasma cannons lit up space. "Human ship, you have enemies on your port side," he transmitted.
"I cannot reach them in time." "We see them," Commander Park replied.
She adjusted her targeting and fired 3 railgun shots in rapid succession. 2 hit. The third missed by meters. Targets eliminated. "Thank you for the warning, Commander." "The honor is mine," Thexnor replied, and he meant it. Fighting alongside the humans had taught him something. Speed was not everything. Power was not everything. Sometimes what mattered most was courage and the willingness to stand your ground. Minutes crawled by. The Perseverance took damage. Small hull breaches were sealed by emergency systems. One railgun stopped working after its power conduit was severed by enemy fire. But the ship kept fighting. "Mass driver capacitors at 60%, Lieutenant Kim reported. 70%. "We are almost there, Captain." Then the sensors detected something new. 20 Thraxian ships, all damaged but still combat-capable, were changing course. They were not attacking coalition vessels. They were not trying to escape. They were heading directly for the Perseverance, and they were not slowing down. "Captain, we have a problem," Commander Park said. Her voice was tense. 20 enemy ships on collision course. They are going to ram us. "ETA, 2 minutes." Captain Huan Lee understood immediately. War Master Krell had figured out the Perseverance's weakness. The mass driver could only be used for straight-line acceleration. To build up enough speed for an effective strike, the ship needed distance and time, but 20 ships ramming them would destroy the Perseverance before it could charge up. It was a suicide attack. Those 20 crews knew they would die, but if they killed the human ship, it would be worth it. "Target the approaching ships," Captain Huan Lee ordered. "Fire everything we have." The Perseverance's remaining railguns fired. 3 of the approaching ships were destroyed. Then 4 more. But there were still 13 ships coming, and they were close now. "Too close. 90 seconds to impact," Commander Park said. "We cannot stop them all." Admiral Velkara saw what was happening. She opened a channel. "Captain Lee, we are sending ships to intercept." "Hold on!" But her ships were too far away. They could not reach the Perseverance in time. Captain Huan Lee looked at his display. 13 enemy ships, 90 seconds. The mass driver at 73% charge. Then an idea formed in his mind. It was crazy. It was dangerous. It would probably destroy his ship. But it might work. "Lieutenant Kim," he said calmly, "I need whatever charge we have right now. Can we do a short burst? Just enough to accelerate to 0.4 light speed for 10 seconds? There was a pause. Then Kim's voice came back. "Maybe yes, but Captain, it will destroy half our systems. The ship will be dead in space afterward. No power for weapons. Limited life support. We will be helpless. We will be dead if we do nothing," Captain Huan Lee replied. "Prepare the burst. Commander Park, plot me a vector. Not away from them, Through them, Commander Park stared at him. Sir, you want to fly toward the ships that are trying to ram us? They are in a tight formation, Captain Huan Li explained. All heading to the same point. If we stay still, they hit us. If we run, they chase us. But if we accelerate to 0.4 light speed and go through their formation, they cannot adjust in time. We will be too fast. Understanding dawned on Commander Park's face, and we drop pellets as we pass. At 0.4 light speed, even our partial charge will be devastating at close range. Exactly, Captain Huan Li said. It is risky, but it is our only chance. Plot the course. 60 seconds to impact, the tactical officer announced. Commander Park's fingers flew over her controls. Numbers scrolled across her screen. Vector plotted. We will pass within 500 meters of the lead ship. The others are spread along our path. 45 seconds, the tactical officer said. His voice was shaking. All crew, brace for emergency acceleration, Captain Huan Li announced over the ship-wide intercom. This will be the roughest ride yet. Hold on. 30 seconds. Mass driver ready, Lieutenant Kim reported. Captain, I want you to know, it has been an honor serving with you. The honor is mine, Lieutenant, Captain Huan Li replied. Now let us show these aliens what humans can do when we are cornered. 20 seconds. The 13 Thoraxian ships filled the view screen. Captain Huan Li could see their hulls clearly now, damaged, scarred, but still coming, still willing to die to destroy his ship. 10 seconds. Captain Huan Li's hand hovered over the controls. He waited. Timing was everything. Too early and they would miss. Too late and the enemy ships would hit them. 5 seconds, now. Captain Huan Li slammed his hand down on the activation control. The mass driver fired. The Perseverance lurched forward with brutal acceleration. The crew felt like they were being crushed into their seats. Vision went gray at the edges. Breathing became almost impossible. The ship screamed as metal stressed beyond its limits. In 3 seconds, they went from barely moving to 40% of light speed. The Thoraxian ships, expecting a stationary target, suddenly saw the human vessel accelerate directly toward them at impossible velocity. They tried to adjust their course. They tried to turn. But at the speeds involved, it was like trying to dodge a bullet after it had already been fired. The Perseverance shot through their formation like an arrow through paper. As it passed, Commander Park triggered the weapons system. A cloud of tungsten pellets spread out behind them. The tungsten pellets hit the Thoraxian ships at 40% of light speed. At that velocity, even the smaller charge was devastating. The first ship simply vanished in a flash of white light. The second ship was cut in half, its rear section tumbling away as atmosphere and debris vented into space. The third, fourth, and fifth ships suffered similar fates. The others had slightly more warning. Some tried to activate emergency shields. Others attempted to turn away. It made no difference. Traveling at near relativistic speeds, the pellets carried enough kinetic energy to vaporize anything they touched. In the span of 3 seconds, all 13 Thoraxian ships were destroyed. The Perseverance emerged from the cloud of expanding debris. Then slowly it began to die. Lights flickered and went out. The main engine sputtered and stopped. Emergency power kicked in, but it was barely enough to keep life support running. The bridge crew sat in near darkness, lit only by the glow of emergency panels. Damage report, Captain Huan Li said quietly. His voice was hoarse from the strain of the acceleration. Lieutenant Minho Kim's voice came through the intercom. He sounded exhausted. Captain, we are dead in space. The mass driver is completely burned out. Main reactor is offline. Backup reactor is barely functioning. Hull integrity is at 47%. We have breaches in 12 sections. Life support is on emergency power only. We have maybe 6 hours of air left with current crew size. Weapons? Commander Jiwon Park asked. None, Kim replied. Railguns are offline. Missile tubes are jammed. We could not fire a pistol right now if we wanted to. Captain, we are a floating wreck. Captain Huan Li nodded slowly. He had known this would happen. The ship had given everything it had. Now it needed help. Open a channel to Admiral Velkara. The communication system crackled. It barely worked, but it worked enough. Admiral, this is Captain Li. The Perseverance is disabled. We need assistance. Admiral Velkara's response came immediately. Help is already on the way, Captain. Multiple ships are moving to your position. You will be protected. There was a pause. Then her voice continued, softer now. Captain Li, what you just did. I have been a military officer for 40 years. I have seen thousands of battles. But I have never seen courage like that. Never. Captain Juan Lee did not know what to say to that, so he simply said, "Thank you, Admiral." Across the battlefield, the remaining Thraxian ships were fleeing. War Master Krell watched his fleet retreat and felt the weight of defeat. He had started with 300 ships. Now he had less than 200. And the Coalition fleet was pursuing, destroying any ship too damaged to keep up. The battle was over. The Coalition had won. And it was all because of one ship. One slow, primitive human ship that should not have been able to make any difference at all. Krell opened a secure channel to his home fleet. "This is War Master Krell. I am reporting a military defeat at the Kronos Expanse. Casualties are severe. Recommend immediate cessation of hostilities with the Coalition. Reason: the humans have developed a relativistic kinetic weapon that makes our shields obsolete. Further military action would be unwise." The response from Thraxian High Command came hours later. It was not what Krell expected. "Request accepted. We are opening diplomatic channels with the Coalition. Return to base immediately for debriefing. The war is over." The Perseverance drifted in space, surrounded by Coalition vessels. Repair crews were already boarding through airlocks, bringing spare parts and equipment. Medical teams treated the injured. Engineers worked to restore power systems. Captain Juan Lee stood in what was left of his bridge and watched through the cracked view screen as Coalition ships formed a protective ring around his vessel. Commander Thexanor's ship, the Swift Talon, was closest. The reptilian commander's voice came through on audio only. "Captain Lee, I owe you an apology. When we first met, I laughed at your ship. I called it slow. I questioned whether humans belonged in space at all." "You did," Captain Juan Lee agreed. There was no anger in his voice. Just simple acknowledgement. "I was wrong," Thexanor continued. "So very wrong. Your ship is not slow. It is like a coiled spring. Like a predator waiting to strike. And you are either the bravest captain I have ever met or the craziest. Perhaps both." Captain Juan Lee allowed himself a small smile. "Perhaps both," he agreed. 3 weeks later, Captain Juan Lee stood in the Great Hall of the Coalition Command. It was a massive structure built on a space station that orbited no planet. Delegates from 47 species filled the hall. At the front, Admiral Velkara stood at a podium. Next to Captain Juan Lee stood Commander Jiwon Park and Lieutenant Minho Kim. All three wore their dress uniforms. The gray fabric had been cleaned and pressed, but the uniforms still looked simple compared to the elaborate outfits worn by the alien delegates. "Today, we honor 3 humans," Admiral Velkara announced. Her voice carried through the hall. Captain Juan Lee, Commander Jiwon Park, and Lieutenant Minho Kim served aboard the UES Perseverance during the Battle of Kronos Expanse. Their actions turned the tide of the battle and saved countless lives. She paused. But they did more than win a battle. They taught us something important. They showed us that advancement is not always about discovering new things. Sometimes it is about perfecting what we already know. The humans did not invent new physics. They simply used physics in a way none of us had considered. Admiral Velkara held up 3 medals. They gleamed in the light. "I present to you the Coalition Star, the highest military honor our alliance can bestow. These medals are given for exceptional courage, brilliant tactical thinking, and actions that saved the Coalition from defeat." One by one, the 3 humans stepped forward. Admiral Velkara placed the medals around their necks. The hall erupted in applause. But unlike the laughter at the War Council 3 weeks ago, this applause was genuine. It was respect. After the ceremony, delegates crowded around the humans. They asked questions about the mass driver, about the tactics, about human engineering. Captain Juan Lee answered patiently, but he did not tell them everything. Some secrets were worth keeping. Commander Thexanor approached with several other captains. "Captain Lee, I have a question. When you first told us your maximum speed was 0.3 light speed, you were not lying. But you were not telling the complete truth either." Captain Juan Lee nodded. "That is correct. 0.3 is our maximum sustainable speed, the speed we can maintain for hours or days. The mass driver is different. It gives us extreme speed for short periods, very short periods." "Why did you not tell us this at the War Council?" another captain asked. Captain Juan Lee considered the question. Then he smiled. "Because you would not have believed us. And because the best weapons are the ones your enemy does not know about until it is too late." In the months that followed, the story of the Perseverance spread across the galaxy. It became a legend told in military academies. Young officers learned about the battle, Some called it the Battle of Kronos Expanse. Others called it the day the humans struck like lightning. The Thraxian Empire signed a peace treaty with the Coalition. One of the terms was simple: they would never attack human colonies. War Master Krell, in his official report, wrote, "Recommend extreme caution when dealing with humans. They appear primitive, but they are dangerous in ways we do not fully understand." Other species began studying human tactics. Some tried to copy the mass driver design. They found it was harder than it looked. The system required precise engineering and a willingness to push machinery beyond safe limits. It required, in other words, a very human approach to problem solving. Back on Earth, the military began construction of 3 new ships. They were larger than the Perseverance, more powerful, better armored. They were called the Indomitable class, and they would be the most feared warships in the galaxy. But the Perseverance itself was special. It was repaired and upgraded. Captain Huan Li remained in command. The crew voted to stay together. They had become family during that battle. No one wanted to serve on any other ship. 6 months after the battle, Captain Huan Li stood on the repaired bridge of his ship. The view screen showed Earth floating in space below them. It was beautiful. "Blue and white and green. Home, Captain," Commander Jiwan Park said. She was looking at a message on her console. "We have new orders. The Coalition wants us to participate in a training exercise. They want us to demonstrate our capabilities to the fleet." Captain Huan Li smiled. "They want to see if we can do it again. Can we?" Lieutenant Minho Kim asked from the engineering station. He had been promoted after the battle, but he still preferred to work with the machines rather than sit in an office. Captain Huan Li looked at his crew. These people had trusted him with their lives. They had followed him into impossible danger. They had performed miracles when he asked, "Can we do it again?" He repeated the question. "Lieutenant Kim, what is the status of the mass driver?" Kim checked his displays. "Fully operational, Captain. Better than before. I made some improvements while we were being repaired. We can now reach 0.97 light speed, faster than our first strike." "Then yes," Captain Huan Li said. "We can do it again. Better than before. Set course for the training grounds. Let us show them what the Perseverance can really do." The ship began to move, slowly at first. 0.3 light speed,